It is the Anfield Wrap in association with Access Sports Colleges. We had Gary Judge in last week talking about this partnership that the Anfield Wrap now has with Access Sport. It's a pleasure to be partnering with them, to be really, really clear. If you go to accessport.ac.uk, you can see the website and everything that they do offer. On socials, it is Access Sport Col if you're on the Twitter, and Access Sport College if you're on Instagram. Just to sort of point out the key things about this partnership and what it is that Access Sport do. They're a national sports training provider focused on career-related outcomes. They're established and growing links to employers to ensure that programmes have the most relevance to modern industry. They utilise the latest sports technology and employ the most qualified staff to create a professional student-athlete experience, and they regularly play games against and visit the biggest clubs in the country. Many of the students work at pro clubs during and after courses. An example is Charlie Ennis, who came to Access Sport as an aspiring footballer, looking to study alongside his training, and he is now full-time at Liverpool FC as an analyst and was employed by FIFA as part of a dedicated team to analyse the recent World Cup. That's what Access Sport are doing. If you have an interest in them or know anyone who does, do check it out. accessport.ac.uk. On with the show, I've got Siobhan Biggane, I've got Lizzi Doyle, and I've got Neil Docking joining me to talk about, first and foremost, Liverpool 2, Leicester City 1. It is likely to be a painful conversation at times, about as painful as it can possibly be when Liverpool have won a game. Neil Docking, we'll start with the Liverpool manager. He had this to say post himself. The result is very pleasing, obviously, but we all saw the game and it was not our best performance. We know that. We had a few good performances, really good performances, but the majority were not on top of their game. Let me say it like this. I love it when he says that. Let me say it like this, because you could say it in other ways, but it would involve foul and abusive language, and that's why this can happen. When it's only 2-1 against a good opponent, you have to fight through. That's what we did. I'm pleased with that, but of course we have to play better. Liverpool was shocking.
Dreadful in the first half for at least 35 minutes. Absolutely terrible. You sit nearer to the dugout than me. I thought he looked surprisingly calm, Jurgen. I don't know what it was like closer to the...
I was opposite this way, so I wasn't that close to him.
Yeah, I just thought during the match he wasn't going as spare as I would have been if I was in his shoes. The amount of times we were giving the ball away was just the main thing. We were just so sloppy in possession, and after playing so well at Villa, and I think I thought playing admirably at City as well. I thought we'd sort of moved on from some of the games performances we'd seen in September, October, but we were right back there. We looked so frail defensively, and we're just offering no protection to that back four whatsoever.
So let's just sum up there from Neil, Lizzie. Weak at the back, weak in the tackle, shape's a mess, couldn't pass the ball. How on earth did Liverpool win 2-1?
I have because of our good lads Wout Farce. Is it Farce? I thought it was Farce. I'm going to go for Farce.
Well, it was indeed that.
Whatever he was, he done us a good job. But how that game played out is beyond me, really. And I remember just watching that first half and just thinking, this is diabolical. This is awful. I know this has been an issue from the start of the season and probably even earlier than that, but this was so obvious, the sheer lack of midfield at the moment. In Harvey Elliott, right, he's a good kid, he's a good lad, I really like him a lot, but then, his natural position, before Klopp was playing him in the midfield, is the right of a three, isn't it, usually?
In attack, you mean?
Yeah. And then Oxlade-Chamberlain would play in midfield, but then Harvey Elliott's in the midfield and Oxlade-Chamberlain's, on the left. And Harvey Elliott, when he's in midfield, especially playing on the right of the midfield, he offers Trent no protection whatsoever. There's always big gaps between Salah and Trent. And I'm looking right, and I'm not Naby's biggest fan, and I was worried about how he was going to play and stuff, and especially after that cameo at City. But I'm looking and I'm thinking there's an out-and-out midfielder there on the bench, and we're playing a non-midfielder, and we just got sliced through. And then Henderson in the 6, he really struggled. He did really struggle. And I hate it when people pile on one person, but, a lot of it did go through him, and he did try hard and all that, I get it. But I think it was glaringly obvious last night that midfield needs work on, definitely. Whether that's the bodies or whether that is people needing to get their act together, get even more rest. That, to me, it was the clear standout thing.
Yeah, it was like we'd never been away, wasn't it?
Back to
5
normal.
minutes in, you go,
Nice.
Let's have another 8-week World Cup break.
No, yeah, and you come to a point where you can't. They're not tired anymore. You know, you can't blame rest anymore unless there's obviously some sports science stuff that we don't know about. Obviously,
there's this virus going around that's been mentioned a couple of times.
Has that hit us? Yeah,
Yeah.
I hadn't.
Well,
I
to everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I have heard a lot of people having the flu that's not COVID that everyone's been on about. Yeah, maybe, but it was just it was slow. It was sloppy. It was there was no very little movement. I thought, God love Elliott. He was so easily muscled off every ball that he got, and that's not a one-off for him. And you wonder how best to handle that. Speaking of Naby, I thought he offered a little bit of control and a bit of structure when he came on.
No, he did.
And when Andy Robertson's having a bad game, that everyone else is having a bad game. He just stinks the gaff out so badly when he's having a bad one that it's so obvious. The players played really, really well, but so many people let themselves down last night.
I'll come on to the players who played really, really well in a minute, Siobhan. I'll come back to you though. There's one thing you say, it's like we've not been away. I think the difference is we lose that in October.
Yeah.
And I think that's to their credit, is that they're absolutely dreadful. They get given the gifts, and what they don't do is go, ha, we'll give you gifts back. Instead, there's not many shots from Leicester second half, not many chances. They at least, even though they're not offering very much, they at least close it down and they get out with the points. And 2 months ago, they'd have found a way to lose that game.
Agreed. And those gifts, it's refreshing in a way to see them go the other way, because that absolutely wouldn't. We would be handing them over with a bow a couple of months ago, but. I think we're really fortunate that Leicester offered absolutely nothing after the sucker punch of obviously them putting themselves 2-0, 2-1 down. I think they were gone after that. I don't think they had anything left after that. Everton was a pot shot. Everton was mishandled before it even got to before being a chance. And I was at the back of the Annie Roads and I couldn't see a thing, and I could see that much. But I think we're just really, really fortunate that as we were diabolical, they were absolutely abject. I think we were really fortunate.
I think you can understand how that takes the wind out of a team's sails to give Leicester a small crumb of comfort in that they play relatively well for 35 minutes. The plan's working. They're keeping us at arm's length. We're very much the masters of our own downfall, Neil, don't get me wrong. But from Leicester's point of view, to go from that to suddenly being 2-1 down and the same players scored 2 own goals, you can understand how, given everything that's been going on for them, they do struggle to rouse themselves a little bit second half, and maybe they do. That does help Liverpool see the game out.
Yeah, momentum-wise, it
would be the worst thing you could imagine.
Worse. And just before half-time as well, the second one. No, I totally understand. And they've been struggling anyway. And you sometimes you see a team and they're on a bad run, and they must just think the world's against us. How on earth has this happened? Because there's a spell in, the first half hour where we're just routinely giving them the ball and inviting them to score a second. And
it's all the senior players, Neil. I mean, we've talked about it, we'll come back on to Elliott, but I thought Alisson's distribution's amongst the worst I've ever seen it. I thought Matip's had a terrible first half. Yeah. Henderson's awful for an hour. I want to come back on to the hour notion, but he's awful for an hour in there. Robertson's really struggling. He's neither here nor there. Virgil's, I think, defending well, but he's, again, with the ball, he's giving it away over and over. Thiago's the better performer of everyone, but even he's giving it away soft at times, and that to me is it is the senior players here who are just guilty of so much poor play in that first half an hour.
It was like they just weren't switched on. They weren't switched on enough to the task at hand, because some of the ways they're giving the ball away as well, it was, it's moving inside and playing it across our own defence, basic stuff that you're taught at school, basically. Turn outwards, get it down the line, stop playing it across the pitch, cross field. It was really frustrating. I have some sympathy for Jurgen in that the squad's decimated with injuries, it's obvious, and so he's picking players that he would perhaps not want to pick. He obviously hasn't got the option of Milner. Fabinho, his wife's having a baby.
Has had the baby.
Congrats. That's the best news I've ever had. Sure it is for him too, but I'm very much hoping he's back at Brentford.
Now back to work.
Because we need you. So there's options there. I don't really like Henderson as a 6. I think his best performances for us have so often been on the right, gluing everything together. There's sometimes games where we're playing, lesser opposition, where he's excelled there though. So it's not to say he can't play the role, he hasn't played it well in the past, but it just felt like right from the start yesterday. I mean, their goal, it's just a series of errors.
Just goes through them, just completely bypasses the midfield.
Yeah, is it Matip who goes to try?
Matip's very second to it.
There's just no ownership from anyone at all.
Right on the halfway line, and then Henderson's slow to react, and then is it Virgil who tries to put a challenge in on Daka, and then
3-on-1.
Yeah, it was just awful, like absolutely terrible. I do think a lot of it is mentality though, because we talk about Harvey Elliott and he has got these issues in his game, but we've seen games where he's really diligently stuck to that task of imitating Henderson and doing his best impersonation of Henderson out on the right, against Man City, at Spurs as well. But I think it's not his natural game. And because it's not his natural game, because he has come through as an attacking player, a winger, at Blackburn, he's scoring all these great goals and dribbling, and you're seeing him as a forward player, but he doesn't have the pace, as we've said, to play that necessarily in a Klopp system. So it's not his natural role. So nobody was tracking runners. Time and time again.
I thought credit to Leicester. I think they're actually quite clever. They put Dewsbury Hall almost on Elliott and trust that Dewsbury Hall will win that battle, and then they put Barnes on Trent Alexander-Arnold. And what goes well for us is that Trent Alexander-Arnold is I think Barnes has a good game as well, don't get me wrong, but Trent Alexander-Arnold has a really good game, to accentuate the positives where there are maybe three. One of them is Trent, who wins his one-on-one battle with Harvey Barnes, but it's a serious battle. Barnes comes away from it with credit as well. But that works for Liverpool in the long run because that's their only real out. Dewsbury Hall, I thought, was the best Leicester performer, but that's where they decided they were going to win or lose the game, was whether or not Barnes was going to get the better of Trent, and Trent gets the better of Barnes, and that's one of the reasons Liverpool win 2-1.
Yeah, that's a risk that a lot of teams take, isn't it? We've seen it a lot this season where Trent has been caught out quite a lot, and listen, Harvey Barnes is a good player, he's a nifty player, and he's arguably their best player on the pitch, I think, and Trent, I thought was exceptional yesterday, and it was the timing of his challenges as well. And there was even he just looked so much more confident. I think there was one where Harvey Barnes was running through, and where he'd usually he stood him up and he pushed him out, and everyone was doing that thing, where they were dictating the game and everyone was screaming for the second ball, stand him up, but Trent was just all over it, and he looked like he was commanding, and he was almost helping to lead the back line really with how he was sort of dealing with Harvey Barnes. And then he played well sort of going forward, but I think what he can take away is the defensive performance, and the reason he got player of the match, didn't he, by Sky? I think I saw it in the pub, and I would have argued him or Thiago, to be honest. So and I think you get that, and you get the confidence from when the thing that people have been picking you up on time and time and time again, you're a defender who can't defend and all this rubbish. He put in a brilliant defensive performance yesterday, and that will do him the world of good. And when you're looking at, I don't know who he'll be coming up against with Brentford, but I don't know whether it'll be a much tougher task. Like say, Harvey Barnes is a good player. Trent will have done his research for him, but he can hold his head up high, and hopefully he can take that confidence now and not be panicking every time he scores one-on-one with his man.
And that's what he found himself a lot yesterday.
He was
one-on-one.
This is what I'm saying about being exposed though. Harvey Elliott, good lad, and I take your point on imitating Henderson, but the way he doesn't, I don't feel like he tracks back and covers Trent. So when Trent's pushing up high, the Henderson's so used to dropping in, and when we don't have Henderson doing that, Harvey Elliott leaves him exposed.
And Harvey Elliott, it's strange because when he has a really good game, you're like, God, he was everywhere. But when he has a bad game, you're like, he wasn't exactly where he was nowhere near where he needed to be. I think Trent, I don't know whether it was before, it must have been after the game, he gave that interview where he said, listen, I'm well aware of what's going on with me at the moment, and I'm working on this actively. And I thought it was a great a case in point for him saying, this isn't great, I know it's not being great, I'm working on it, I've not helped myself, he said in the interview. And I think that showed yesterday that he was like, this is one for you guys who don't think I can defend.
I got the impression he was enjoying it.
Yeah,
as the game was wearing on.
He was relishing it.
I thought he was relishing the battle, and he was relishing the fact that he was winning the battle.
Sometimes I thought, and I know this won't be the way because he's a professional sportsman, I thought he took it a bit further than he needed to on occasion, but not that he did, but he seemed to be enjoying it so much that he was like, I was like, You're enjoying that far too much. Get in earlier.
But I like the reaction from the crowd to Trent's performance as well. When he was winning these challenges, some of them there was a couple that were really, really well timed.
Yeah.
And you could hear the crowd go up as well. You could hear him feel him feeding off that. And I think it's a really good, interesting point you make there about him relishing the challenge, because I'm sure that's the language that Carragher's used in the past when talking about some of his performances, and Neville, that he has to enjoy the actual defending. He needs to almost get as much pleasure from that as he does from creating a goal. And it felt like that last night, that he was buzzing from having contributed so significantly to our victory.
Let's talk about the most electrifying man in sports entertainment today, Neil. Darwin Núñez. It is. I think he's excellent. I genuinely do. I think everything goes for him apart from putting the ball in the back of the net. It's the post, which obviously leads to the own goal. There's the other one that just goes just over the bar. He's now not scored in 2 consecutive league games because he scored against Southampton before the World Cup. So it's now 2 consecutive league games. Everyone's acting like he's not scored a goal for a year. It makes no sense to me whatsoever because, and I'll keep saying it until I feel I don't need to say it anymore. I don't know if at times it's a being in the ground thing, but when you're in the ground and you watch what he does and what he does to defenders and how he terrifies the life out of them, I can't genuinely. Salah does a season where Salah scores 44 goals. And everyone's trying to work out what to do about him. I don't even feel they were as scared of Salah as defenders currently are of Núñez. No one knows what to do with him. No one knows how to play against him. I absolutely love him. And I thought he was the business.
I love how much we've taken him to our hearts. I love the fact that the whole ground is just all in on him and everything he does. He's created 2 goals in the last 2 games. Just by his sheer pace and his force. He's created 2 goals, so they're not assists technically. I don't know whether the one off the post and the one for Stefan, as I'm referring to.
I hope so, because I took a punt and put him as my captain. That's how much I'm in on Darwin Núñez.
But he's causing so many problems. I mean, if anything, the most glaring misses for me last night are from Mo.
But there's the great through ball from Núñez that gets him in. It's such a good ball.
The through ball where he surged through the middle, and that's not something we've seen quite so much. I think, again, Jurgen referred to it in his post-match interview. He's taken out 2 or 3 players, and I didn't see the pass was on, and he slipped that ball through perfectly, really. And the only surprise was that Salah didn't finish it. And then the one in the first half where he just burns that lad. I'm not sure. Is it
Face?
Is it Face again? Yeah. Oh, well, poor kid. But he absolutely just burns down that flank and cuts it back for Mo, and Mo sort of curls it over. Perhaps maybe had more time. He's such a constant threat. And as you say, I'm not sure sometimes whether it comes across on television quite what a menace he is. And he's someone that they're always keeping an eye on. But it feels like, because the rest of the team, we're seeing that we're not the machine, the well-oiled machine we've been in the past. It's being focused on the deficiencies in his game rather than everything that he's bringing to the table, which is colossal.
Small bit of devil's advocate on that. When a team is not, the well-oiled machine that it wants to be, someone needs to take their chances. And we've seen it so many times where we're like, thank God for Gerrard, thank God for whoever. Thank God for Salah. And I love him, by the way. I agree with everything everybody said. I think he's a constant threat. I don't think that lad farce face makes the dreadful mistakes he makes twice if it's someone who he's less scared of that he's up against. I don't think that happens. But I think we're all very relieved that we've won that game that we didn't deserve to win. We would be fuming if we hadn't, in so many ways. Not necessarily at him in this game, but what I'm saying is the chips are all falling to protect him a little bit. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to think he's brilliant, but to also think, God, I wish you'd start putting a few of them away.
Yeah,
or
100%.
be a little bit more controlled, or be a little bit better in your decision making. I hate how we're so binary as a fan base on this. It's like you either love him and you're blind to all his flaws, or you think he's shite and you think he shouldn't have made it. He shouldn't have made it this far. I think it's perfectly fine to be both, and that's where I sit at the moment. I love him. I love watching him. I think he's such a menace. I don't think anyone knows what to do with him. I agree with what everyone's saying, but I'd be absolutely fuming if we were still losing games and he was still not converting. Not to say he was obviously one of our best players. He has been for the last few games, but I think it's worth it. It can't go unacknowledged, is my point.
No, I agree. And sorry, Neil, I think just because we all do want him to do so well. Yeah. I think Sean referenced it on the pink, and it was what come to my mind. It's the Crouchy thing. Yeah, it's the loving him and seeing everything that he's doing and trying to and you're willing him. So it is that sort of like red tinted thing in front of you that you go and you're almost like ignoring it a little bit. But there will be conversations. Listen, the conversations have already started, but in a way, rightfully so. Like, he is a professional footballer.
And he will be fine.
He will be fine. And it is only early days. But the thing is, I'd be a lot I'd be a lot more worried if he wasn't making things happen in general, and he's getting about. And the key thing is he is getting the chances. And you know, like I say, he was so unlucky for that not to be his goal last night. It literally hitting the post. He is. I absolutely adore him. I love the fact that he's mad, but his pace is frightening. And when we were kicking Cop End, because where I sit, he come over on my side, and again he burnt that poor lad off. And honestly, I was thinking he's not getting it. Oh my God, he's got it. And I think he won a corner from it. And then he's really good. So he's taking the corner's being taken, and he's bent over. He's catching his breath. Corner comes in on his head, and it's just like. He's brilliant, and it will come off at some point. And listen, if it doesn't, then we can start having those conversations, I think, down the line. There was one where he cuts in and everyone's like screaming, take it on your left. But it's like this confidence there of like, where's Mo? Because it's like he doesn't trust himself.
That was quite early on, wasn't it?
And I know people talk about confidence, but I do think he has this like trust in him, in that like he knows he's missed these chances, and the timing of him coming in at the same time as Haaland has really not helped him, because people are making comparisons that should never be made, because that man is a robot.
But he's also not very involved in football matches.
Yeah.
And whereas this fella is so involved in
different players, and that's okay.
Hugely different.
He's not an out-and-out scorer, so let's stop treating him like he is one. If he doesn't score for the next 10 games, but his involvement means that Salah scores, and I don't know, that Gakpo scores, that Jota scores, and we win football matches, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. You mentioned Salah should do better. I think Salah's the one who should deal with the chances a little bit better. The one that Nunez gets back to him yesterday, I think, is excellent. I think that's Salah when he feeds him in. But again, players miss chances from time to time. Everybody misses.
Yeah, and Mo has missed a lot of chances in the past. I wouldn't. It sounds absurd for a player who's catching. I
don't think it is. I think it's literally part of football. You're going to miss.
Yeah. And is he overtaking Kenny now, or he's about to overtake?
He's about to overtake Kenny.
About to overtake Kenny, which is in
about 200 less games.
Yeah, which is absurd. But it's long been said by fans that Mo Salah will have like 4 or 5 chances and he'll miss a couple and he'll bag a couple. And I'm absolutely fine with that as long as we're winning football games. I do think Darwin needs to relax in front of goal, and I was disappointed that it strikes the post, because I thought he did in that instance. He relaxed, and it should have been a really good finish the way he chipped it. But sometimes, he drives me spare like everyone else. I'm not going to pretend he doesn't. There's a moment towards the end where he's up against his fullback and he brings it down out of the sky. And he had no right to win it, cuts inside, and you're like, go on, hit it. And then he plays like a really weak pass to Mo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Hits the pass to Mo, and you're just like, what? How have you been so brilliant at that and so bad at that? But
it's
a lot
not
of
trusting himself, is
it's just relaxing into it and backing himself. The relationship with Mo has been evident, I think, from the start, that the two of them enjoy playing with each other. They complement each other. I'm very intrigued as to what we're going to see when Gakpo comes in, hopefully on the left flank, and we have a real creative force on the left wing. I didn't feel like Chamberlain got into the game yesterday.
I don't think he could find his way into it.
No, and he spoke again in the aftermath of the Villa game of him having to perform an almost different version of being a left winger, where he's assuming more of the Firmino responsibilities and dropping in. It just looked to me like the game passed him by.
He's good for the own goal.
Yeah, he is.
It's his flick for the own goal.
Yeah.
If that was Firmino, you go, that's really Firmino. The flick for the own goal, that gets Nunez in. Okay, we'll move forward. The other one I liked, Lizzie, and I don't think he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, is Thiago. I thought Thiago showed. He at least managed to get on the ball. I enjoyed him winning the fouls. I think he's in part winning the fouls because I think he's getting pressed more, but he's dealing with it cleverly. It helped break the game up. He's part of us getting home at 2-1, I felt.
Yeah, and that one, that was sort of like on the edge of the box. And it because when Thiago makes a foul, half the time you're just throwing your hands up in the air and you know it's going to be a yellow, and it's usually in the first 20 minutes. But do you know which one I mean? It was so close to the bone, and it was on the edge of the box. Leicester were coming forward and he just slices underneath him, and the crowd were giving it loads. There was nothing to cheer. And then Thiago makes this unbelievable tackle. But again, his vision and sort of his experience and his maturity really shone last night. And I think he was one of the... Not that no one was trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck. That's probably the wrong word. But he sort of did take it upon himself. And he just sees things that other people don't see. And, you look... I was watching him last night and I thought he was one of the better ones. But then, it was one of those things. I was watching it. I was like imagining Man United at home last season. Just this footballer who I absolutely adored, and I would actually say is my favourite player and is my favourite player to watch. And considering the midfield were really disappointing last night, he is the only one who comes out with some dignity and integrity. And I said in the preview show, I thought it'd be him that'd be rested. Obviously, maybe if Fabinho's didn't have a baby, we might have seen him be rested. But he feels like the one sort of consistent in that midfield that, I would definitely be looking to put him in against Brentford, whereas I can't say the same for the other two.
It's exhausting trying to will him fit and will him to stay fit, isn't it? It's mentally exhausting. I thought he looked really Spanish last night.
Yeah, he did.
Like really Spanish. The way he was flying in, his body shape, his like skin, and like I just thought he was like really, really of the continent yesterday. I loved it.
Of the continent.
Of the continent. He's a man of the continent.
It's a great bit of praise.
Yeah, I just thought he was like just classic in a team full of people who looked like extremely middle of the road England. He looked very Spanish.
He just saw the game for what it was, didn't he? Like he knew it needed to be scrappy. He knew he needed to win.
But it was so
tackles.
easy. I reckon everyone else around him would have got those tackles so wrong last night because of the tempo of the temper of the game, the temperament of the game, and he just got them right every single time. I just loved him, but I'm just willing him to stay fit but it is exhausting willing him to stay fit.
Okay, we need to talk about the negatives now, and there's a number of them to choose from, but I want to start with Henderson, to be honest with you, Neil. I think it's probably amongst the worst hours he's ever played for Liverpool, that first hour in there. I think you can have a conversation about strengths or weaknesses of him around the idea of playing that number 6 position, but for me, there's not necessarily being suited to a certain role at a certain time, and then there's playing really, really poorly, which is what he does. The mild thing that ironically almost concerns me even more is I actually think his performance improves, and he digs that performance out. You've seen him do that in the past where it feels like nothing's going for him and he finds a way through, but to me it feels as though it coincides with the substitution on the hour mark, which sees Elliott move out of midfield to the left hand side, and into there comes Keita. And I think that one of the things I took from that was the midfield looks better when it looks like there's 3 midfielders playing in the midfield.
Yeah, certainly. I think I read it was the first time that those 3 had started a game together for us. Thiago, Henderson and Elliott. Henderson, he's had such an impressive World Cup, and he sort of reminded everybody of what he can do. And yesterday, he was dreadful. He was absolutely dreadful. As you say, with the last 20, 25 minutes of the game, he settles into having a positive impact on the game during that spell. The game had calmed right down by that stage. I didn't really feel at any stage that Leicester really looked like scoring in the closing stages. I wasn't really fearing an equaliser, even when they won a couple of free kicks late on. But when Naby comes on, the balance is immediately clear that it's much better balanced. We've got an issue with Naby where we're still not sure on his fitness and whether he's going to be able to start this game at Brentford, whether Klopp trusts him for 90 or even Klopp trusts him to give us an hour first. But I think if Elliott is going to find a role in the team as we're playing currently, it should be on the left. It should be on the left, and we need to be looking to play Naby over on the right-hand side and try and just strike up that understanding that they've previously had, the midfielders who've played together for the last 2 or 3 years, who know their roles and know what's expected of them. We looked so disjointed yesterday, and the press has just vanished in effect.
Yeah.
It's just not part of our game anymore at all. I'm going all over the place here, but I'm much like our midfield performance.
And easy to play around. No, that's what I'm watching there, Siobhan, is that they were easy to play around, and then they weren't when Keita came on.
No.
And I don't think it's because Keita did anything truly remarkable. And as I say, I don't think Henderson goes from a 3 out of 10 to suddenly playing a 9 out of 10. I think he goes from a 3 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10. Keita comes on, Keita's playing a 6 out of 10, but Keita and Henderson's 6 out of 10s suddenly mean it's just a bit harder to play around Liverpool. And they've both got weaknesses in different ways at different times, but suddenly it's much harder to get at Liverpool. And I think that's the main thing I think the manager's going to have to take moving forward from this point.
Yeah, I think that the things that are missing are just so obviously missing. There's no one really recovering balls that have been lost. They're losing possession so easily and quickly that becomes even more apparent when it doesn't get one back. As you said, there's a lack of engine at the moment to just take a ball and go really quickly. Everything is slowed so down. Everyone's overthinking which option they're going to take because they don't trust each other to just bolt forward. I thought that as the game wore on, it was more obvious because the defence kind of got itself together. I think, like, you know, as Neil said then, you know, we weren't particularly worried about Leicester. I wasn't particularly worried about them scoring in the second half, really. And that was because they seemed to have it covered everywhere except the midfield. It was just, as you said, when Naby came on, it just felt like a much more balanced, much more structured, much more stable performance. And that is a bit of a worry when you look at, I think that the game was a perfect advert for how much we need a midfielder, an out-and-out midfielder.
And I also feel like you can see that the midfield are overthinking. They're overthinking their decisions. Often that's my biggest complaint with Harvey Elliott, is that it's the decision-making, and that'll come, with time, you hope. But he doesn't progress the ball quickly enough because he's in two minds and he's cutting back when the ball could have been played sooner. But we've seen such an overhaul. For years, you've had Mane and Bobby Firmino offering that constant, especially Mane, that constant outlet. You know, just give me it at any point in the game. Whereas at the moment, you can see them all hesitating. None of it's instinctive. They don't know where their man's going to be, like they have known for the last 4 or 5 years.
There's no link play between the midfield and the attack, so Chamberlain doesn't play particularly well. There's no Firmino available, and that's where I think, again, you can feel as though you're being too harsh on Elliott. For me, where I'm concerned about Elliott, Lizzie, it is the idea of how can this work in midfield when we haven't got the ball. That's the bit that's concerning me, and that I feel that the other stuff will come in time, but it's what the cost of that in the meantime is. And at the minute, the risk reward of this just feels completely out of whack. The risk feels absolutely enormous, and I'm just not 100% what the reward is. No. And that means that I do find I've had moments this season, and I think yesterday on about 25 was one where I just thought, I hate watching this team. I absolutely hate watching them because I'm fine with risk and reward, and I understand, especially with this manager, you've got to take risks. But I'm just going, but I want to know where the reward is. Please show me some reward out of this. And you don't get to see that either. And all round, you know, they had me, as I say, in about half an hour there. I was absolutely at the end of my tether until Feist stepped in and did the decent thing. I was on the verge of getting off.
Yeah.
They were driving me that mad.
Yeah, and the thing is you said it before, and I felt like raising the glass to you. It was like, we need midfielders to play midfield, and to me it's just becoming more and more obvious. This is not me saying he's a terrible player by any stretch. I'm not saying that the lad's got talent, but to me he's not a midfielder. He's not a midfielder in how Liverpool want to set up their midfield is the issue.
I worry we're exposing him now.
Like,
no, there's a point where with a player you feel as though you've exposed him a little bit.
He's not growing.
All ages,
He's not growing. So that was to me, that was an unnecessary risk last night when you do have a midfielder who, right, okay, I know he's not the world's best midfielder, but has done us plenty of jobs in the past in Naby Keita, who we know can play.
But why do you think he does that? Because I think he does that because he wants Keita to play Brentford. And he thinks he can't do Leicester and Brentford back to back. So he thinks, I've got to pick one.
Yeah.
And he thinks, I don't want to do Elliott in the midfield at Brentford because they're all 8'3".
Yeah, which one does he need his best lads
for? And maybe Elliott was never really destined to play then either, and the Fabinho thing just whacked everything out of kilter.
I don't know, she's had a Tuesday for a while.
I know, God, come on, Rebecca, give us some notice. But there was, to me, Harvey Elliott just looked like there's some games which you referenced, Neil, like where he just looks so mature and he just looks like he's been playing the game for years. And what I do like is that he doesn't shy away. He doesn't go wide and he doesn't shy away from anything. But last night he looked like a young boy to me. And there was times where he'd get the ball and his head would swivel. It's almost like, where's my dad? You know, like, where's my dad? And he was constantly looking for Henderson and Thiago, to the point where he received the ball sort of on the left side and he could have moved he could have tried to take the man on, he could have looked for a more progressive pass, and he turned round and he's looking for Henderson, who has 3 men around him, and he passes the ball, loses the ball. And it's almost this clamber to find one of the more senior midfielders because he doesn't trust himself. And if that is the case, then don't play him in midfield. And I understand that we might be short on options, maybe with injury, or like you say, with games coming up and unforeseen circumstances, that's fine. And if it is right in what Neil's saying is that he's got Brentford in his sight, is that and the other, then okay, Leicester at home is the one to take that little bit of risk. But I mean, I didn't know Oxlade-Chamberlain had said that about playing in a bit of a different position. Oxlade-Chamberlain can play right in midfield, and you could have played like a Fabio Carvalho left. Do you know what I mean? Like,
But he's another little lad.
He is, but he's a little lad playing in his position, and Oxlade-Chamberlain would be playing in his position too.
Yeah, that's
and there's
fair.
no drive from the midfield last night, bar Thiago. And what Oxlade-Chamberlain's done so well against Villa when he was dropping back and stuff was driving from the midfield. We just looked like we lacked legs all over the place last night.
Paul Joyce has ruled out Liverpool signing another midfielder, Neil, all of which continues the scrutiny on Liverpool's midfield, says Paul in the Times. The likelihood remains that Liverpool's incoming deals are now done for this transfer window, barring an unexpected opportunity presenting itself. Bids have not been made for Enzo Fernandez or Caicedo. I mean, one of my little things here is, if Liverpool feel as though they need that sort of footballer, there are more opportunities than just two if they do want to sign someone. And also, both of these lads went from really small, well, not really small because River Plate's a massive club, but smaller clubs last summer. So it's not like you can only buy from Benfica and Brighton, or clubs like Benfica and Brighton. Those that, well, Caicedo went a little bit earlier than that. It's February of 2021, but he only established himself at a later point. I'm fine if they're absolutely certain that they can rock on. Then that's down to them, if you know what I mean. That's down to them to decide that they can rock on. That if the manager feels as though that's the case as well, I think he'll feel as though there's not that many games that matter in January when you get the other side of Brentford. There's Brighton on the 14th and Chelsea on the 21st. But it's their gamble.
Yeah, and it's, again, another gamble that we took in the summer. You only have to look at the bench yesterday. You know, we're talking about Harvey Elliott and other options, Carvalho, and then who else was on there? Doak and my mate Stefan.
I'm very pro Doak being on the bench, though. Like, don't do anything that stops Doak from being on the bench.
I'm pleased to see players, young players getting the chance, but there's so much youth on there, and there's a reason. It's because of the glaring deficiencies in the squad, because we've not recruited well enough in a key position. We can look at Caicedo, 4.5 million. He went to Brighton. Fernandez, I think it was about 9 million Benfica paid for him. We need to be getting these players. I think you've used the word in your agenda. Get them at source. We don't always be having to wait and give them a year to see, Klopp talking about perhaps taking more risks. Maybe that is sometimes not saying, well, we'll see how they do over here for a year at a club before we make our move. Can we not be making a punt for them sooner? I can't believe that Jurgen's happy with the midfield options he's got currently. Curtis Jones has disappeared. I don't know where he's up to now. Milner's obviously got injury issues. Arthur Melo is even real.
Yeah?
Sixth most expensive midfielder of all time.
The money that's been spent on him.
No, for one fee. Sixth most expensive midfielder of all time.
Wow.
It's one of my favourite
Money well
facts.
spent.
If you look at the top 10 all-time expensive midfielders, I'd say only about 3 of them are unmitigated successes. The rest are messes, and Melo is one of them. So it's not about lashing the money. It's about instead getting the right player.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Juventus. I think we all know that there's been some interesting financial decisions made there over the last few years. But clearly, we need to go into the market. I think.
Would you have Sanderberg? He's my favourite one to ask. Would you have Sanderberg? Constantly linked to the enormous Belgian. I presume he's he's Norwegian, the enormous Norwegian.
Yeah.
Plays at Sheffield United at the minute. Would you have him? 6'5"?
Well, you've won me over.
If he's tall, Neil will have him.
Neil's obsession with height is something, isn't it?
It's because I'm sick
Are we
of
bringing
watching...
that into
I feel
2023?
like you're channeling your Chris Wood energy into Darwin.
put it
I'm
somewhere
channeling.
else.
I'm sick of Liverpool being little lads running around, and I'd like them to be big lads running around. And if they're still shit, then at least I can't go, well, they're tiny.
But we've said previously, we've seen a lot of busy midfielders this year that you thought they could do a job for us. I think you mentioned Souček not long ago.
6'4".
Yeah. Well, there's a reason you mentioned him then. But no, there's got to be options, and I just can't see that Klopp's happy with the current setup and what he's got at his disposal. And I really, you look at the table now, and it's tight, isn't it? It's tight between Newcastle. Look like they could pull away because they've just got the momentum with them. Jurgen's talked about it being, a fight for 2 spots between, I think, 5 teams, but it could become a fight for 1 spot between 4 teams. And when I look at Manchester United, Spurs, Chelsea and us, we all look...
Just as a point of order for listeners, we're recording this whilst Wolves are playing Man United. It's 0-0 as it approaches half-time at the minute as you're saying those words, just to let you know.
Yeah.
I think this weekend might be a decent one for people dropping points. There's a few games that might could go either way, and that's one of them. So,
but all of us look like
I hope some people starting the slide now.
Yeah, but I think all four of us look like sides that are going to drop points.
Yeah,
because we're giving away so many chances. Again, I saw some data that we're giving away far more opportunities than we have at any point over the last 4 or 5 years. I think Arsenal and City, their figures are so much better than ours. We consistently are conceding opportunities, and I felt we rode a luck against Villa, and we rode a luck again at times last night. And I'm very glad and grateful that Tony has a knee problem and is likely to miss out if that is indeed the case. Because I just feel away at Brentford, that defence is going to come under real scrutiny.
Which massive lad would you like to buy?
Oh, talk about putting me on the spot.
Under 6'2" need not apply.
Okay, who's a massive lad that I like? You got any massive lads that you like that come to mind?
Oh, it's another conversation. Is it?
Who's a midfielder that you'd have? Because Tielemans comes on for them last night. He's out of contract.
I've said this all along.
Yeah.
But he's got so many miles on the clock.
I've said this from the start. I am surprised, right? He's out of contract in summer. Offer Leicester a sweetener in January.
But why has no one gone for him? I mean, this could be a really good piece for 5
Doesn't he struggle?
Why is no top 6 side gone for Youri Tielemans? None.
I don't know. I actually don't know. He has struggled with injury in his time. He has been a bit injury prone, if I remember correctly. I feel like every season...
He gets minutes. He's got an unbelievable number of minutes for his age. That's why I mean about miles on the clock. An unreal number of minutes.
Maybe I'm just thinking of like an odd season then where he was out for a while. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't even start last night, does he? I mean, how old is he? I like him, and I like that he's a progressive sort of attacking midfielder. Yeah, 25.
25.
Great age.
He's 25, and he's made 426 senior appearances.
Listen,
because he's been playing for Anderlecht since he was about 8.
He's been linked, hasn't he? But I don't know how inner workings of football clubs happen really. But I know Leicester have been clinging on for their dear life because they've not been able to bring in, depth to their squads and replacements. So whether they've got Youri Tielemans on an absolute wager or something, I don't know. I like him, and I would have thrown a little 10 mil or something and just said, why don't you get something for him before he goes? If it's a case of a free, if you're thinking if we're gonna potentially lose Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Naby Keita potentially, why not bring one of them in on a free and spend on 2 of them? I do like Caicedo. I think he's a good player as well.
I think he's a good player. I just think it's the idea of 70 million's mad.
The money is
but
crazy.
Brighton are in such a strong position.
They are,
and so are Benfica.
But then they've had the added thing of the World Cup where he played really well for Ecuador as well. So the World Cup has just put everyone's premiums up through the roof. So Liverpool, the way that Liverpool work, and what you said there about nipping things at the source, that feels like a very Michael Edwards thing, and what Michael Edwards used to do. Look at Minamino. Minamino was the 7 million. Let's take a punt on him. He's available. That type of, which reminds me of what you're saying there about Fernandes from River Plate, or maybe Julian Alvarez was about 20 odd million when City signed him.
Do you remember Dahoud? He's out of contract in the summer.
Who?
Dahoud. We were linked with them loads in the summer of 2017. Before we go.
He's a ghost of gutters past.
He is a ghost of gutters past. He's out of contract in the summer. He's currently at Dortmund. He's only 26. You could,
Tielemans not that
he's
big.
not very big though. No, and knows Dahoud. Dahoud's not very big. I think one of the reasons why we didn't go for him is physicality. So I think that sort of does him in the end. There's a lad at Brentford who's called Jensen.
Yeah.
He's 26. He's out of contract in the summer. Sounds tall.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's your Brentford team? Has anyone got me one?
No.
I think Chamberlain doesn't start. I don't think Chamberlain starts. I'd love to see Konate, yeah.
I think Konate definitely starts.
Konate, I think that midfield, hopefully Fabinho comes back in and one of Thiago or Henderson drops out, probably, and Naby Keita comes in, and then I don't think you'll see Chamberlain. I don't know where Bobby's up to.
I would be absolutely killing myself to get Firmino back in for this.
You did say he was back in contention for that.
That's what I'd go for anyway.
And Simicast as well, I think, is an option.
Because Robertson goes off injured.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Elliot went off injured. Elliot went off injured.
I mean, he was in the wars, Elliot. We've just, all been quite mean about him, but he really was in the wars. Are we going to win?
I'm not that confident. I'll be honest. I'm not that confident. We have been getting over the line though. So
I'm confident because I'm not confident. Like, I feel as though we're going to go there and know this is an absolute pitch battle from minute one. You're not going to get to play your football. It's going to be absolutely horrible. Like, I think all of this weirdly sort of suits us. The idea of your back's against the wall before a ball's being kicked here, lads, I think is no bad thing. I want them to go in there like this is going to be, to quote John Barnes, 90 minutes of sheer hell.
Yeah.
And if they're not turning up with the mentality of this is going to be 90 minutes of sheer hell, they're not doing it right. This should be 90 minutes of sheer hell that they've got to come out the other side of.
Yeah, if they're going to get anything, they're going to have to fight for it. I think that's obvious. I'm confident with scoring goals. I really am. I'm still confident that Darwin's going to find the net eventually. I'm confident with us going there and causing problems for them. But as I say, we're a bit walking wounded in the middle at the moment, and I'm not entirely sure whether we're going to be able to put together a midfield that's going to again protect the defence enough. And
Fabinho's done nothing. He's just had a late night. He's just had to encourage. He's not walking wounded. He's fine.
He didn't give birth.
Exactly, he did not give birth.
That's
It's
all
worth
I'm
remembering. The father does not give birth, Neil. You might tell yourself that when people say, well done, Neil, and all that of your many children.
Well done.
Yeah, that's
Well
what
Have you wet the baby's head?
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. He's not wetting the baby's head. He's got 90 minutes of sheer hell. He can wet the baby's head and the coach back from Brentford. That's where we can do that with 3 points in the back pocket. Are they going to win?
Yeah, I've got to say yeah, because I don't particularly believe it right this second, but I'm going to go with yeah.
I'm with you on the, because it's almost like it feels like from a fan perspective like a bit of a free hit of like we're all expecting it to be shit, but yeah, they'll win because why not?
I honestly, I want it to be brutal. I really enjoyed the second half last night as it got more and more ridiculously meaningless and it just fell apart. I was like, I remember this football. This is the football I grew up with. I understand this. I understand looking at the clock every 3 minutes. That's what I want to do against Brentford. I want them to score one and then we just look at the clock for 90 minutes and they win 1-0. That's what I want. I want it to be horrendous. I want people to say I'm never watching the game again after it, but Liverpool have got the points. It can't be too bad for me. I want it to be the worst game of football you've seen in your whole lives.
Oh, well, last night we'll give it a run for its money.
Absolutely. And yet, we've talked about it at length. Liverpool, absolutely dreadful. But they beat Leicester City by 2-1. A real reminder that sometimes in life you don't get what you deserve. And Liverpool most definitely got what they didn't deserve. Thank you very much to Jordan Singleton, because this took a lot of producing around cameras and stuff. Thank you very much indeed to Siobhan Biggane, Lizzi Doyle, Neil Docking. There's other people to thank. This has come in association with Access Sport Colleges as well. It has been the Anfield Wrap this week. See you very, very, very soon after Liverpool go and absolutely grind the humanity out of it at Brentford. It is the Anfield Wrap. Oh my God. Fucking hell. Right, okay.
I don't want random shit on the table.
Keep it in.